Welcome to this episode of Lips Garage. Today we are continuing work on the garage itself, not doing the automotive work. I'll show you an update as to where I've been, and I'll show you what I'm going to do next. So I've had some updates about putting in drywall to hold in the heat a little bit for the winter time. I've got almost the whole run done on the south wall. Where I'm having some issue right now is knocking out for my brace up there. There's right ways, there's wrong ways to do this. The way that I'm gonna do is gonna be what works for me. It's not gonna be what any professional contractor is gonna say, hey, this is what I'm gonna do. It'll work for my needs. This is not structural, it's nothing but cosmetic, so I don't need to worry about any of that. Essentially, I just need to hold up the drywall. So as you can see over here, I'm notching the drywall to fit between my posts to give me kind of an open rafter design. Where I run into issue is I have to set the base into here, rock the panel up, and then I'm screwing it to the actual rafter and I'm leaving the crossbar exposed. With this piece here, I've got to be able to take that sheet, set it into there, and then lock it into place. But because these are angled down together, I'm not able to do that. So what I have to do is this piece that I've already cut, I actually chopped in half for this part. I'm gonna run a couple of supports this way that I can screw the drywall into, and then I can take that piece and just notch it into that brace and then leave this open for the other. So what we've been doing is every 3 braces is a new sheet of drywall. So it'd be, here's 1, here's 2, here's the third one, and then 1, 2, and then the final one. So I've only got 2 pieces left. But what I need to worry about is marking out for my light box, make sure there's room to set that up, and then have enough pieces that I'm gonna be able to securely hold up the drywall. The other thing I have to plan out is my electrical. So right now I have, let's get to the front of the garage. I've got a conduit that runs from the house all the way up to here, comes into the garage, and it did run up this way to just a single light switch. I did a hard connection for all that and buried it in a secure box behind the wall. I'm actually gonna open that back up again to do a little better job of that and splitting things out a little bit more. But essentially, we come over here. This is my overhead switch. This is my outside light switch. And originally, I had one outlet here, one outlet on the other wall, and I had the one outlet overhead. Those were all live. That one obviously works garage door opener. Where this tangled mess was just a threaded bulb, and the same thing on the other side. So what I did is I took the threaded bulb housings out. I did wire in an outlet that still worked off the switch, and then I did some of these plug-in LEDs. Eventually, because I had more lighting than I had outlets, I put one of these power strip bars in, was able to run all my lighting off of that. So I am planning on changing that up a little bit. Instead of having a single 2 outlet, I'm gonna break them up and I'm gonna put an outlet pod in each corner essentially, and all those are gonna be lit by the switch as well. I did add an outside light coming off the roof down over to my parking area that will turn on with my not fog light, I'm sorry, my floodlight. There you go, it's been a day. I've got it hooked up my floodlight out front. I'm also wiring up a apron light to go over here, but that one's gonna be wired up to a separate switch that I can turn on independently. So when I look at my very detailed schematic of my garage, so all my power comes in right here to a switch, to a main switch. I come over to this one here is still gonna be my outside switch. Instead of having a single for the overhead, I'm gonna have the LED lighting is gonna be on one switch, and I'm gonna have the recessed lighting on a second switch. So I've actually got a double switch I'm gonna put in here. This is my main power in. I've got one outlet here, one outlet here, one outlet here, one outlet here. And then coming around the other corner, I've got one outlet here, one outlet here, and I'll be putting the switch in. So that I'm pretty standard on, and I've got most of them. I've got the box there. I've got a box here I'm gonna do a little better job on. Got my outlet there, got my outlet there, got my outlet there, got another one behind my stack. So my lower ones, I'm pretty good with what I'm doing. But when they wired up the main garage, originally, this wasn't me, So inside this conduit, I have a single line coming up that comes in, and I've been trying to track down all that mess. So what I'm gonna do is end up just ripping all that out and starting over again. I've got some areas I don't like. There's some cracking, some fraying in some of the conduit there, or in the lining. So I'm gonna get rid of all that and kind of rewire how I'm gonna do it. Kind of split up the connections a little bit just so I don't have a horrible box like that. And I'm gonna take the opportunity while I can, instead of having it all exposed, keep all that cleaned up. And I'm gonna run all the wiring up on top before I put my installation in. So that is the plan. We'll see how far I go. And then once I get all that done, I get to figure out what I'm gonna do for the front and the rear, little half wall there. And I'm trying to decide if my speakers, got one there, got one there, got one right there. This one's on the floor at the moment, wherever I put it. And then I got my subwoofers and I got my outdated deck. So I plan on moving the TV probably over to this wall. So when I'm either watching or the son and I are here playing games, I'll probably have this be my focal point because it's gonna depend on how you set up your speakers and your subwoofers. So right now I've got it, this is my central because again where the TV is, but I'm gonna switch it around, have these be my primary speakers, surrounds behind me, and then the subwoofers mounted up high somehow. So still kind of working out some of the plans, but that's where I'm at the moment. So I cut a couple boards for test fit. I got this guy here, I got this guy here. I'm gonna put one more up top. But again, I wanna make sure I've got enough room for my light boxes. So I'm putting it halfway between these 2 points and halfway between these 2 points. So I'm about 22 inches side to side and about 44.5 front to back. So my middle point is gonna be 11 inches by 22.25. My light box is 6.5. So I measure out 3.25 on either side, 3.25 up and down. Can't see all the marks that I made, but I've got where my light box is going. So this particular bar is gonna be all right where it needs to be. And then as long as I stay ahead of essentially this crack, then I'll be all right for the third one. So getting as high as I can, I have to try and decide if I'm gonna be able to get a board either right here, or if we follow kind of the line that this particular drywall is taking, we're right about here to here. So if I can basically go from here to here, and that'll give me one last spot I can screw them onto. Once I have it, I'll end up doing a toenail this way, go kind of angled into the rafter itself, and that should hold what I need. This is the only joint, and I'll probably have to do this on the other side, but at least in my rung, it's the only one I should have to worry about because of how this particular piece fits. So the next steps in my wiring diagram is once I have everything figured out, drawing out a little map for myself so I don't get confused. I do have the wiring actually started, but this kind of keeps me all in together. So I've got it color coordinated. The first circuit is going to be to 5 regular outlets. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's going to be a little junction box, and this is going to come up to my overhead outlet, which is going to be live all the time. That'll be the garage door opener. Second circuit is going to be 3 plugs and a light. So it'll be one here. This one will be an outside plug, another inside plug that goes to a switch, and then that will do my apron light. The circuit number 3 will be my 2 outside lights. So here's going to be where the power actually comes in. I've got on the other 2, so I've got to run a line to hit the switch, one on the corner, and then one up I've got on the roof pointing to my parking area. Number 4 is going to be the 8 lights that I've put in. So it's going to come up to a junction box here, and then I'll have these wired, and then come across and I'll have these wired. Number 5 is going to be my 4 overhead plugs, and that's what I'm going to have my regular lighting switched into. So right now, again, I've got that plug and that plug there. Those are both wired to the switch. That wires this main power circuit, and that's what most of my LEDs are plugged into. So instead of doing that, I'm gonna end up having 4 banks of just power or regular outlets that are gonna be powered by the switch. and then I'll be able to have an adaptability if I wanted to do a drop light or something like that. I can still run out of there. So I'm making sure that not any one circuit is too overloaded. All of my lighting is LED, so that'll be pretty simple. Right now I'm just running straight 110. Later I will upgrade to 220 so I can run either larger compressor, welder, something like that. In the meantime, we have been considering getting a large generator as a backup for the house. I'd be able to run a welder off that generator if the need came to it. So this is the next step where I'm at. I don't have drawn on the map, but the other thing that I'm doing is wiring up for my sound. So I'm going to leave the TV base on this wall, so everything's going to be set up as that being my center. So I'm actually going to have 4 surround speakers across the back. I've got my one front speaker here. I'll have another front speaker by the window. Might even put them together for a center channel up top. And then I've got my subwoofers. My subwoofers will be wired and hanging. I'll make sure I've got them good and solid bolted there. They'll actually be a shelf and bolted down up top. Might put a little bit of a tilt down so it does fire into the center. But I'm going to leave that as my central point. And yeah, so again, I do have quite a bit of the drywall done. I want to make sure I've got everything buttoned up here before I hang the rest of the drywall. I'll run the rest of my outlets and then I'll start putting the insulation up. The little bit I have done, it has starting to get a little bit chilly here. I am noticing a difference, although I'm still going through a tank about every 10 days instead of every 5. So I'm getting more out of it. But for right now, it's still, you know, I can feel the drafts and everything. I did get some expanded foam up in the crevices. I've got to finish out a little bit of a run there, find a couple of the other gaps. But once I do have this completely sealed in and insulated, as well as the door, once I get that reconnected, there's a little bit of a breeze at the top where it's not set down because I don't have the garage door hooked up. It's just sitting there. It should be able to make this very usable in the wintertime. And maybe time to update my heater as well. That still might be a touch too small for the space that I have. So, as my mantra goes, and I've said before, little by little. All right, so I've been working on the shop on and off for a couple of months. Still not completely where I want to be, but I'm making headway. But I do need to wrap up this video. I might have a recap in the off season once I do get it done. It's just taking me a bit longer than I really wanted to. So I removed the panel off the wall, and I've got my box here where my main power lead runs into the building. And then this will be where I split off all my connections from. So again, I've got a total of 5 different circuits. I've got one that's going to run the west and north wall for my outlets. I have one that's going to run my south wall for the outlets. Again, I'm going to have one outlet over here, one outlet by the door, and I'm going to have one outlet down low going outside. I'm also going to have a switch on this wall that's going to run an outside apron light. So all that is going to be circuit number 2. Circuit number 3 is going to be a switch for these lights here, which I do have hooked up to a plug at the moment, and I can control them with a rocker switch. So again, the primary light is on. When you flip it back on, it gives you the little, what they call night light mode, which gives pretty decent lighting out here for just kind of chilling out if I wanted to watch TV or something that nobody else wanted to watch. And then off and back on again gives you full. I am going to have my center outlets wired to a switch as well, which is going to run my LED lighting. And again, I'll probably tuck those up into the channel, just give me a little more headroom there. That outlet there is going to be live, or not live, I'm sorry, constant, and that's going to run the garage door opener, and that is going to be tied off the circuit that goes along that north wall. And then the last one is going to be on the outside of this corner here. I do have a floodlight over the yard, so that'll be there. In the meantime, I have finished up most of the woodwork on the wall that I've got finished. Let me come around my mess here. So again, I do have the car siding going up the majority. I've got a 2x8 as my kickboard. I've got a 1x4 as kind of my chair rail. I did rip down the pallet boards a little bit better. I'm still working on some of this, getting it finished up, but you got a lot better idea, especially once this lower part is painted, like this stuff here, get a lot better idea what it's going to look like overall. Still trying to decide how I'm going to close in that wall, whether I'm going to do wood paneling or if I'm going to do some of the leftover drywall that I have. And I did start putting insulation in, but because of a potential surprise, I didn't do as good of a job as what I would normally do if this is intended to be full-time. So you can kind of see here that my insulation is starting to fall out through the gaps. I've got a little bit there. So some of the gaps are a little bit larger than I would have liked had I taken my time, and again, if I was doing this for somebody else. So I've got some thoughts as how I can do that. Now, my wife keeps telling me to a degree that this is a bit of a waste of time or lipstick on a pig. I have been working with a contractor who potentially wants me to build a car for him. And if I build the car, then he will build me a garage and just kind of trade labor for labor. So what I'm working in right now is a 20 by 20, just a standard 2-car garage. The city that I'm in, the largest you can do is about 1,000 square foot. So we're looking at doing a 28 deep by 36 wide. That'd be 1,008, and they do allow that to come in. You got wall height restrictions, you've got peak height restrictions and all that. But I have some ideas that I can work within those parameters to actually have something pretty operational and something pretty fun. So I'm a very visual person. I can imagine stuff in my head that most people can't, but sometimes it is easier having something to work with physically. So I did build this little diorama. So we're looking at 28 foot front to back, 36 foot left to right. I plan on doing 3 separate doors, and then kind of idea, have a little entry door out here to get in the alleyway, the entry door in, window location, all that. Now, one of the things that I'm thinking about doing is walling off this part here and then walling off at about 20 foot here. So what that would do is give me a 20 foot deep by 12 wide single stall garage. It would give me a 10 by 12 here for an office space. Coming in here, I can have a 16 foot peak, and if I do a single door in the middle, then instead of the door just rolling up the height of the door, it can come up, run the whole height of the wall, and come across. Also, which I should have said before, instead of doing a standard truss where you have a crossbar, have what's called a scissor truss and almost do like a cathedral ceiling. What that would do is give me the clearance to actually put a 4-post lift in the middle that I can get in and actually lift a full height work under the vehicle. Over on this side here, I'd have like a portable 2-arm post. So I could still get underneath for doing, say, brake work, exhaust work, things like that. But my main one would be here. This one here would get standalone parking, or if I wanted to have a detail bay and have it heated just in there specifically. Plenty of cross ventilation with all the windows and everything. So this is kind of my, as far as what I can build within the city limits, kind of my dream car setup. Oh, also, if I end up walling this off and putting a roof over it, that also gives me 12 by 28 foot of storage up in the overhead here. So my goal is to get this guy built possibly even as early as spring. We shall see. These things don't usually end up working out for me, but I'm going to keep building my garage right now the way that I need to have it be functional. But my dream is to get something like this here in the near future. So that wraps up this video for the week. That does wrap up the last full video I'm going to have for my second season. Try and get a good shot without the sun. I will have some small updates and stuff as I have things change, whether it be the garage update or whether it be a project update. So I'm at the 54 pickup, 55 Buick. I've got another 55 pickup, the 55 wagon, the 56 wagon, the 66 Impala, the 66 Econoline, the 69 Fairlane, possibly some updates to the Sport Track. I still haven't introduced my wife's car yet. That's a little bit newer than what I normally work on. So season 3's got a lot of potential, depending on how much time I have to actually get some of my projects going. But as always, I do 100% appreciate everybody that does watch these videos. Give a like, give a subscribe if you feel comfortable doing so. Leave a comment, leave a question, anything that you want to pass along. Questions I'll answer as I can. Otherwise, again, as always, I do definitely appreciate you guys taking the time for these videos. We'll see you next time.